Okay guys, we're back in the Cargo Bike Crew garage. Today we're going to be removing and replacing the cranks on our Urban Arrow. So we've got the Bosch Cargo Line motor, we've got Miranda cranks here, and we'll show you through a few different crank types that you could come across. This motor has the standard ISIS Spindle, which is fitted to Bosch Gen 2, Gen 4, a few Bafang, what else, specialized Brose motors. So if you have any of those motors, this technique will be suitable as well. If you have a Gen 3 Bosch motor, it's actually a BNI spindle or a mini ISIS spindle. We've got one of those as well, so I'll show you the technique on that one. Let's get started. Okay, here's the original crank arm on our 2023 Urban Arrow cargo line. So if you have a look, it's got this plastic ring around here. So if you've got this sort of crank, this is what you will need. You'll need a small pick like this. You'll need an 8mm Allen key. You'll need a crank puller with a removable inner driver. This is a Park Tool CWP-7. You'll need an adjustable wrench like this one. You'll need a torque wrench that is capable of doing 60 Newton meters. And you'll need also a suitable 8mm driver for that. So start with your pick. Go in behind the ring here. Gently get that off, put that aside so you don't lose it. You'll need to leave the crank bolt on there, but what you can do is just slightly loosen it before you get everything off. And then take the inner driver, completely unwind it, and all you will need is the outer nut. Wind that on gently by hand, making sure you're not cross-threading anything. Make sure all your threads are clean and whatnot. Just give that a little twist to make sure it's snug, not too tight. And then what you'll want is, you want to take your 8mm, start unwinding it, and what that'll do is start pushing on the inside of the crank puller tool. And I'll start pulling it off the crank spindle. There you go. You can take your crank puller nut off that. Just use an adjustable wrench on that. And there it is. Alright, let's have a closer look at this crank arm. You can see there's a fixed washer on the inside of this one. And what that means is you can't use the normal crank puller with the usual technique. So yeah, this technique actually works for either method, whether or not you've got that fixed washer in there. And I'll show you the other method on the Bosch Gen 3 motor. That's very similar. Alright, let's go show you how to put this back on. So to put this back on, if the spindle's looking a bit dry, just put a little bit of grease on there. You want it to slide in very smoothly. If it's the first crank arm you're putting on, just make sure you're lining it up with the splines on there. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. Editing Brendan here. Also check you've got the correct left or right hand crank arm before you put it on. If it's the second crank arm you're putting on, make sure you're lining up correctly in line with the other crank arm. So point the other one up, and then you can point this one down. Just push it on, and then take your crank bolt, wind that on by hand first. Do it up as much as you can with this one. It's just a bit faster this way. Alright, take your torque wrench, make sure it's set to 60 Newton meters, like that. Alright. The click and you're done. Alright, and take the ring, place the ring back, just like that. All finished. Alright, here is our Gen 1 turn HSD with the Bosch Performance Line motor, Gen 3. So what you'll need, if you've got this version, you'll need a pick to take that plastic ring off. You'll need an 8mm hex key to take it off. You'll need a crank puller. Again, we're using the Park Tool CWP-7. You'll need an adjustable wrench, and to reinstall you'll need a torque wrench to go up to 60 Newton meters, and you'll need an 8mm hex adapter for that. So, to start off, let's just gently pick that off and put that somewhere safe. So yeah, now you've got the 8mm hex that you'll want to take out. It's on pretty tight. Alright, take that out. Now when you do take it out, make sure this washer comes with it as well, so you haven't left that washer behind. I'll go for a little close-up. If you have a look inside there, it's a bit hard to see, but you can actually see the end of the spindle on the end of that crank. So this is the technique that you can use on any crank that you can see the spindle on the inside. So you want to take your crank puller, undo the inner thread. Now on this version there are 2 feet. You've got the small one here, and the big one that's 16mm. That one's used for a standard ISIS Spindle Octolink, but you'll want the small one. I think it's 11mm on that end. That's used to square taper as well. So thread your outer nut onto there by hand. Just make sure it's seated nicely in there, and take this, thread it in with the small foot on there, all the way in by hand, and then take your adjustable spanner and just start turning that. And it'll come off. So you can see there, the spindle is actually smaller than the standard ISIS spindle, and that just makes for a more compact motor and smaller gears inside this one as well, I think. Alright, what you want to do, take that crank arm off. I'll take that off the crank arm, like so. Alright, to reinstall this, if you're putting on the first crank arm, just make sure the splines are aligned with your crank arm. If you're putting on the second crank arm, you'll want to align the first one pointing up, and then you can align the second one pointing down. Simply press it on by hand, take your crank bolt, do it in there by hand. Gently first, make sure you're not cross-threading. Alright. To lock it back on, take your torque wrench. I'm actually going to do this at 50 Newton meters because it's a slightly smaller thread, smaller spindle. And I don't have a torque spec from Turn. still be really tight. Pop your plastic ring on, and we're done. Alright guys, this is the last type. If you have a look at the ring around here and you see a few holes in a metal ring, or maybe there's a hex that's cut into it, this is called a self-extracting crank bolt. So this is pretty easy. All you need for this is an 8mm hex key to remove the bolt, and to reinstall it you'll need a torque wrench like this one that can reach 60 Newton meters, and a suitable 8mm hex adapter for it. So here we go. Now usually on these the outer ring is actually thread locked into the crank arm, so it won't come out while you're riding. Just check that it's fully seated, so that should be alright there. Grab your 8mm. Have to loosen it off. It'll feel really loose, and then it'll back off into this ring. When it gets there, you need to put a bit more pressure into it again. And it should just come straight off. Just like that, nice and easy. To reinstall this, you want to just put a little bit of grease onto the spindle, not too much, just a really light coat so it slides on easily. If you are doing the first crank, just make sure it's aligned nicely. If you're putting on the second crank, what I like to do is point the first crank up, and then make sure the second crank is pointing down. Just align it like that so it's in a nice line while you're pushing on. Just wind it in, make sure it's still aligned. Alright. Then you'll need to switch to your torque wrench. Like that. Yeah, 60 Newton meters. There you go. Alright, I hope you found that useful. If you get stuck, just leave a comment below and give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more workshop ramblings. Cheers!